The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Bookclub Show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood and I am your host. And on today's show, I am joined by some wonderful guests who have their own book club. And we are going to be talking about a very specific book, which I probably have mentioned on the show before, but I think it's always interesting to get different perspectives on it. So today we will be discussing The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon. The little subtitle says Hope Can Set You Free. I'm just going to read the blurb at the back to give you an insight, and then I'm going to bring and introduce my guests. So the blurb says, may you forever bring us luck and protection, and may you carry our souls to freedom. Subi is a refugee. Born in an immigration detention centre, life behind the fences is all he has ever known. Then he meets Jimmy, a scruffy, impatient girl from the other side of the fence. This is one story, the story of millions. So that is the blurb itself. The reason I think that, I've been quite excited to talk about this book is because it does feature the plight of the Rohingya refugees. And it's really, really important because we tend to, on the media, hear only maybe about certain certain situations that are going on around the world, and certain others do become quite invisible. So I think it's a really important book that we're able to talk about today. But we are going to head straight over to our guests. So I'm just going to ask them to say salam and to introduce themselves. So what are your names?
Iman. Amelia.
Arush.
Hannah. Elisa.
Fantastic. So we've got 5 wonderful ladies joining us for the book club show today, and we are just going to start really to get a bit of perspective on how much reading these guys do, and I guess kind of what reading habits you have, and what I'm hoping is that whoever listens to the show, especially younger readers or maybe not so much readers, how they can possibly kind of get into reading. So I am going to go to Iman. What is it that you enjoy about reading?
I don't know.
You're not sure? I mean, it could be anything. Okay, how about someone helps Iman out with this? Who wants to go? Who wants to share what they enjoy about reading?
I like how reading helps me get away from everything that's happening. It's like I'm going into a different world.
Okay, so I like kind of in a form of escapism. Yeah, I really like that. I definitely think I read for that reason. Amelia, did you want to say something?
I think I like reading because it helps me wind down and relax. And like Hannah said, it's like a form of escapism. Escapism.
Yeah. I know, it's one of those tongue-twisty words. But I like what you've said about winding down, because I think I definitely... So does that mean you tend to read like at bedtime? Is it usually when you're about to get...
After a long day, I like to read and wind down. Yeah. It's really nice and relaxing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Arush, how about yourself? Is there anything specific you enjoy about it?
Not sure, because I haven't really been reading that often, but when I do, it's like... It's enjoyable and it's very relaxing. Like, you can stop worrying about other things that you have to do.
Yeah.
Like math homework.
Like maths. Oh, I'm so glad you said maths homework. And I know I probably shouldn't say that as a teacher, but I never enjoyed maths, unfortunately. I probably did use any excuse to get away from it. But I like what you said, actually. You're being honest. So sometimes you maybe don't get a lot of chance to read. But I guess the main thing really is that when you are able to make time, it's something meaningful, right? And it's something that yeah, like you said, it helps you relax and unwind, and I guess all the things that we're kind of, sharing today. How about you guys? What is it that you enjoy about reading?
I think it just makes me feel at peace. Like, it makes me calm down when you're thinking about something or you're stressed. It just makes you think, like, off the topic. Takes you off of somewhere you've been worried about.
Yeah.
That's what when I read, it helps, like, feel at ease, basically.
Yeah, no, I like that, definitely. And I guess also it probably depends on the book as well, doesn't it? So maybe then moving next. So we've talked a little bit about how it's a form of escapism, the fact that it helps us unwind and like relax. What advice do you think you could give to somebody, maybe someone the same age as you who isn't into reading yet, or maybe, you know, there might be some younger children listening and they're like, don't really like that book, or I'm being forced to read a book because of school or something, I don't know. Is there anything that you would suggest to them that might make them, I don't know, get into reading or find a particular book that they might like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Reading is the best excuse to get away from math homework because because your parents will be okay with it, since reading is parents won't get so mad. Like video games, they're great fun, but parents will get mad at you for not doing math homework if you're playing video games instead. Reading, they won't get that mad.
That is so interesting. Maybe I have never thought about that as a parent, and now I'm going to check. I'm going to check why my child is reading. But no, of course, you are right. 100%. Parents are never going to tell you off, if you're getting away from home by doing reading. Amelia, did you want to say something?
Another thing is that don't ever judge a book by its cover, because when I picked up this book, I thought it would be quite boring, but honestly, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's really interesting. Another thing is that if you don't want to read really complex books, you can get like a genre you like and a small book, especially if you're like younger. Yeah.
That is such good advice. And I think you kind of mentioned quite a few there, but definitely, not judging a book by its cover. I'm going to come back to you on that, because I think, did you feel that you did that with the Bone Sparrow?
Yeah.
Is that why? Okay, so we'll come back to you on that one. I thought so, right. So I thought we were going to maybe just add something, but no, that's good advice. So who else has something to share? What advice would you give to younger readers or somebody, the children your age, about how to potentially get into reading or get into a habit of reading? Like, is there a particular routine in mind that you have? What particular time do you enjoy reading?
I like to read at nighttime
Okay.
because I don't get time in the day.
Okay. So why? So is it because? Okay. So if everyone's got a busy routine, so nighttime kind of makes sense. So do you tend to read in bed, or is it like do you have like a special room or a special place or something you do that kind of gets you set that, okay, I'm going to read a book now?
I read in bed.
You read in bed, okay. Does anyone do have special lights or candles, or I mean, I don't know. I don't do that personally, but I know people who do.
My dad has a reading torchlight. It helps shine light on the book, so you can be walking around and reading at the same time.
Yeah.
So even if it's dark, you can.
That's clever. That's clever. Okay. Yeah, I need to get actually a light, because I know sometimes when I'm in bed, I mean, my husband's not really a reader, and he's been like, oh, switch the light off because I have the lamp. But yeah, you're right. I think maybe a little reading light, reading torch would help. Okay, cool. Right. So that's a little bit about our guests and why they enjoy reading and some of the reading habits. But as I said, today we are talking on the Book Club Show about The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon. Now, this is a book that the girls have read together as part of their book club. And I guess maybe what we'll do is we'll just start with your initial... what were your initial thoughts on the book before you read it? Okay, so obviously it was like, right, we're reading The Bone Sparrow, you saw the book cover. So Amelia, because you kind of mentioned something about that already, I'm going to come to you first. So what were your first thoughts about the book before you started reading?
I thought that the book was going to be something quite boring. To be honest, even though the cover doesn't look like a school book, it kind of is like a history book, I thought. Because the cover looked quite plain. But then when I read the back, it did entice me a bit. But I don't think I was still fully convinced that it was an interesting book until I actually started to read it. It was really interesting.
Okay, I think it's interesting what you said about the fact that it kind of came across as maybe being a bit, did you say a history book? What did you mention?
It's like a school book, not a...
Oh, I see. Yeah, so just to kind of put you off a little bit, which is fine. That's actually fair enough. Okay, so coming to maybe Arush, how about yourself? What were your first thoughts about the book?
Well, I had heard it was a refugee book, so it seemed interesting since one of the previous book club books we had read before was about a refugee as well, or something to do with that.
Okay.
And that was quite interesting, so I was looking forward to reading this book.
Okay, so you enjoyed the one that you kind of previously read, so you thought this would also be kind of interesting because it was about the same themes. Okay, cool. Iman, how about yourself?
I never read the blurb, so I had no idea what it was about.
Oh my God, that's so interesting. I always have to read a blurb before I read. So how do you do that? Do you just completely ignore the words at the back of the book?
Yeah.
Are you even slightly tempted that, I need to know at least a little bit, like a name of a character or something?
No.
Wow. Okay, is anybody else in this group like that?
Yes.
No, so go on. So do you feel like you have to read the blurb?
Yeah, I feel like I have to just to see what it's about. Like, if I didn't read the blurb of this book, I wouldn't think it's like any good almost.
Yeah.
Because I read the blurb, it sounded a bit interesting.
Okay. So have you ever done that thing where you've picked up a book, you've read the blurb and then decided just not to read the book? Because, does that happen a lot?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically how you decide whether you want to read something. Oh, okay. But it's interesting how people approach, I guess, books differently. Okay, so Ruchi, I already asked you what your thoughts were. Oh, yeah, because you were saying you'd read the book about refugees, of course, yeah, and you were kind of interested. Hannah, how about yourself?
Well, I've not read refugee books because I just never thought, I've never really had an interest towards them. I usually read other dystopian books, and so when I tried to read this one, it was just different to all the other books I usually read.
Okay, yeah, that's yeah, and again, I think it's coming back to what I think maybe Amelia was saying as well, that sometimes it takes time for you to find a genre that you like, and just because there's a certain book that maybe it doesn't mean you have to like it, or you have to like all books even. Yeah, everyone has a preference, absolutely. Anissa, how about yourself? What did you think about the book?
Well, when I looked at it, I was told it was a refugee book, and I don't tend to like refugee books often. I haven't actually read them because the theme of them tend to be sad, and I don't tend to like reading books like that.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really looking forward to reading it that much.
No, yeah, again, and it's fine, and it's true. Actually, it is quite. It is kind of, obviously, it is a book which is quite sad, and there are some themes in there which are quite difficult to read. And for that reason, obviously, for any parents, carers listening, it is a children's book. But yeah, I mean, the girls here are a bit older, so, kind of 13, 14 years old. So yeah, it's just to be mindful that maybe if you do have younger children, either, it's okay for them to read the book, but I guess you would have to probably take time to really sit with them and discuss some of the themes. But I think for this age that we're talking about now, about 13, 14 is probably quite suitable. Right, okay, so why don't we then delve into a little bit more of the book itself. So we've got obviously two main characters. There's a lot of main characters, I guess, but the two main ones is Subi, who's the actual refugee. He's born in the actual detention centre. You then have Jimmy, who he meets, who's got quite a different kind of lived experience, but it's kind of their interactions and the conversations that they have with each other. Are there any particular initial then things that you'd like to share about Subi's character? What is it that you learn, I guess, about his life reading the book, and how did that make you feel? So maybe if we go to Iman for that one. Is there something about Subi that you remember, or anything, or any part of the book actually that you think, I kind of, this is basically what I learned a little bit by reading it?
That some people actually live like that they can't, that they were born in detention centres and stuff, so they haven't actually seen the outside world and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, which is exactly what Subi experiences. So he has no knowledge out of the outside world other than obviously what his family tells him, the stories that he hears. Amelia, how about yourself?
I feel like reading Subi's experience makes me feel grateful for the position I'm in, that I can have freedom and I can, go out and stuff. But I feel like Subi, he seems grateful for what he's got, even though it's not much, that he can't leave the detention centre. He gets limited food and drink a day. It was like 2 bottles of water a day. And I'm not sure what else to say.
No, that's fine. No, I think what you said is I mean, it's really insightful, because it's true. I guess you do get the sense of gratitude when you do read stories like this, and the amount of the lack of freedom and the lack of access to things, like you said, like water. And there's one aspect of water to drink, but then there's like one aspect. I know there's a scene in the book where it's really, really hot day, and there's so many of the children have to kind of share one little kind of paddling pool just to be able to kind of cool down. There's something definitely there about, I guess, when we talk about the rights of human beings and what they deserve, or what we should, I guess, to some extent, or everybody have. Obviously, not everyone does get it. Arush, how about yourself? Is there anything specific you took from the book or from Subi's character?
Well, his experience and story, it's very realistic, but at the same time, like meeting Jimmy and stuff, not every child will meet someone like that. So it doesn't happen with every person. But then again, with Eli dying and stuff, it is very realistic.
No, it's true. So maybe just coming back to Jimmy, can you say anything about so who is Jimmy, and how does her story in the book kind of compare to his? Kind of, so who is Jimmy? How does she meet kind of Subi, and what kind of relationship do they have then within the story?
Well, she brings Subi hope, because she's managed to get inside the detention centre and get past the fence.
Yeah, exactly. And so they kind of build a friendship, don't they? Even though she's outside of his world, there's a connection there, and I guess you compare and contrast both characters, which is interesting. So Hannah, how about yourself? Is there anything specific?
Well, Subi is just very innocent. He doesn't know anything of the outside world, and he just thinks that where he is, he's just grateful for it. Like, he doesn't, the only thing that he understands, he hears the stories from like the elders of his family. He doesn't understand anything else but where he's lived. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, obviously when you kind of mention stories from the elders, obviously because he's in the detention centre with his mother, who the character is named Ma, and he's with his sister, who's Queenie. So obviously both of those two people from his family have obviously come to the detention centre. They have knowledge of the world outside. Obviously they lived in Myanmar before kind of the genocide took place. So I think what's interesting is, if you do read this book and you don't know much about the Rohingya refugees, I would kind of generally maybe encourage you to look up a part of its history, and how that kind of Rohingya refugees, how they've ended up in the situation they have in terms of obviously politically and all those reasons. It just gives you a good context of where we are. So I'm going to come to Anissa. What about yourself in terms of Subi?
I think Subi lives quite a depressing life, but even though he appreciates everything there. So that shows that he's quite appreciative of everything. He even appreciates the stories he's been told, because they mean more to him than quite a lot of things. And he has a very strong belief in hope. Like when the character Jimmy comes in, he sees her, and she's like his symbol of hope.
She's his what? Sorry?
Symbol of hope.
Symbol of hope. Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. And again, coming back to the little subheading of the Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon, it says hope can set you free. So there is this almost a relationship between having hope and then that kind of access to freedom, I think, which is really important. So there's one part of the book that I think might be interesting to also discuss, which is the quote. It says, most people have their boat ID as their number. Ma is NAP 24 and Queenie is NAP 23. But I was born here, so I have a different ID. DAR1, that's me. So that's a quote by Subhi in the book. So I guess it was really interesting because I know we've had a similar conversation before during kind of the book club sessions. What is the significance of this quote? What is it about our names, right? Let me just kind of put it simply like that. Why are names important, and what's the significance of having a name, and how does that play out in this detention centre for, you know, the refugees that are there? Hannah, I'm going to come to you. What do you think?
I think to have a name is important because it like identifies who you are and it makes you feel important. But like if you're like Subhi, where you don't really have a name, you just have like a code, it doesn't make you feel special. It just makes you feel like just someone random, like you're like a cattle, like just nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's really does take away, I guess, to some extent, your existence as a human, right? Because, you know, it's natural. You're born and you are named, you know, usually by loved ones, and sometimes, you know, even I think from an Islamic perspective, names have a lot of weight. You know, the recommendation is to give your children a good name with a good meaning, because it does have an effect on, I guess you can say, identity and personality as you're growing up. But no, for sure. Arush, how about yourself?
Well, I think when people have names, it tells other people who you are. Because, like, for example, if someone asks you, who are you? You're going to give them your name. So if you don't have a name, then you're not really sure what to say to them. So you're not really sure who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually really concisely, you know, explains that you wouldn't know who you are because you wouldn't even be able to, you know, have a name. And it's that thing of being, I guess, dehumanized, the fact that the refugees at the detention centre, they're just given letters and numbers for their names. And actually the effect that has on them. And obviously coming back then to the fact that in the detention centre they have something called the jackets. So they're meant to be like the guards who are keeping all the refugees in line. And some of them are obviously, by the sounds of it, the majority of them are not treating the refugees in there, you know, well at all. And I think that kind of contributes to the fact that if they are with people who have no names, it's probably easier to treat them in like a not nice way. So that definitely does play into it. How about yourself, Anissa? Was there anything that you wanted to add?
I think that when they're like stealing their identity basically by taking away their name and replacing it with a bunch of letters and numbers, they've basically degraded them a whole other level.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really interesting, and that quote is quite early on in the book, and I think it really sets the scene of what you can potentially expect to happen, you know, in the book. So we've got the jackets or the guards. You then have the refugees who are just, you know, whose identity, you know, like Anissa said, is pretty much stolen and taken away from them, and then how all of this plays out in their lives in this detention centre. So that is, today we're talking to the Girls Book Club group about The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon. And what we will do is we're going to carry on this conversation in the second half of the show. But in the meantime, you can maybe grab yourselves some tea or some biscuits or something, and then you can join us in a few moments. Assalamu alaikum.
يا خير خلق الله يا تاج حسن الله عليك أزكى الصلوات يا رسول الله يا خير خلق الله يا تاج حسن الله عليك أزكى الصلوات يا رسول الله. This man is my
hero, for he's the light of guidance, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too. This man is my hero, for he's the light of guidance, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too.
يا خير خلق الله يا تاج حسن الله عليك أزكى الصلوات يا رسول الله يا خير خلق الله يا تاج حسن الله عليك أزكى الصلوات يا رسول الله.
He's our teacher and our prophet, he's our leader and our guide, he's the only one to follow, so we can attain paradise. This man is my hero, for he's the light of guidance, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too. This man is my hero, for he's the light of guidance, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too, and he should be yours too.
يا خير خلق الله.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Book Club Show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood and I am your host. And on today's show, we have been talking about The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon. And this is a book about a character called Subi, who is born in a detention centre. And it's exploring his life and how he is basically living it with his mother, his sister. He has a brother-like figure in the story as well, who's called Eli. And I am in the studio with a wonderful group of guests who have their own book club. So I'm going to ask them to reintroduce themselves. So we are going to start with
Iman. My name's Amelia.
Arush.
Hannah.
Elisa.
Thank you so much, ladies, for obviously taking your time to be on the show today. So in the first half of the show, we were talking about a little bit about Subi and his character and some of the things that I guess you learn from his story kind of personally. I know you also shared some of kind of your reading habits and what you enjoy about reading, which is really lovely. So if we just go then straight into another part of the book. So we've talked a little bit about, we've mentioned obviously the book is centered around the story of the Rohingya refugees, but this is specifically to do with Subi being obviously in a detention centre and how they are treated. There's another quote which I think is really interesting, which has to do this idea of storytelling. And we already mentioned in the first half the importance to Subi to learn about the outside world from stories from his mother or from, stories that he hears from other people that he talks to in the detention centre. So there is one quote in here where I think it's a quote by Subi, and he says, "I need these stories. So everyone else in here has memories to hold on to. Everyone else has things to think on to stop them getting squashed down to nothing. But I don't have memories of anywhere else. And all these days just squish into the same. I need stories. I need them to make my memories." So I guess my question here is that how do you think, maybe if we just continue that conversation about why stories are important to Subi, but how that relates to his culture and heritage. Like, what is it that, because the stories that he hears from his mother, they are kind of related to, back home when we used to live in, Myanmar, or, those things are important to him. So what do you think, Amelia, if we come to you, why are these stories important in terms of his own culture and heritage, you think?
I think it's important because as his identity's been taken away from him, he wants his culture to stay with him because he's in Australia in a detention centre, not in where he was from. And I think he needs to hear those stories just to like remind him, because he was born in the detention center. He was never like his sister Queenie and his mum were from Rohingya. So they know what it's like, but I guess because Subi is like young and he's curious, he wants to know what life was like there, and all the stories and the culture about it.
No, fantastic. I think that's absolutely 100% right. Arush, do you want to add something about that, kind of in terms of the importance of stories and Subi in relation to his culture?
Yes, because he was the only one born in the detention center. Everyone else had been to their homeland and stuff before, and they had been living there. So he wants to know more about where he's from, who he's meant to be, and
no, absolutely. And I think like who he's meant to be is really I guess it's quite a powerful statement, because so much of our existence sometimes does depend on our history and where we've come from, and that doesn't always just mean the area or the country. It can mean in terms of family and how we develop our relationship to our parents or our grandparents, etc. And it does, and even from a Muslim perspective, storytelling has been such a massive part of our heritage and part of our culture, because we've always had the oral history of telling stories, or it could just be nursery rhymes. And then when it comes to those of us who are then born in like a different country to our parents, so we're part of the diaspora, we have this kind of duality of living, because we're in a country that we're born in a country whose language we tend to speak more of, but we know our identity is also linked to a place which is somewhere else, and sometimes we might have had the opportunity to visit those places. But so we're kind of living in two worlds, and I think for Subi, he knows there's part of his existence which is beyond the detention centre, but because he doesn't have access through it physically, he's obviously doing it through stories, which is really important. Did anyone else want to kind of come in on that one in terms of culture and heritage? I mean, the other thing, and again, this is something we've discussed previously as well, is there is another quote which is still related under the same theme, which is that that was when Ma stopped talking to me in Rohingya too. She reckons if I only speak in English, then no one will think I'm any different when we get out. So this, I thought, was a really interesting part of the book, because it made me think about some people who think, no, it's fine. Like if you're living, for example, in the UK, you just need to learn English. You don't need to necessarily, spend time learning, let's say, your mother tongue, whatever that might be. But in this situation, Ma is literally saying that no, just learn English, and she even chooses to stop speaking to Subi in their mother tongue. Do you have any particular thoughts on that? Anissa, do you have any particular thoughts about that?
I think some people will feel like really like it would hurt him, because that is his mother tongue and he wants to learn his traditional language. He wants to feel like part of his own people, but he's not, because his mom is making him try to like blend in with the people that are not his kind.
Which brings me on to kind of the next question, and maybe Iman, why do you think Subi's mum is saying to him, or chooses, I guess, to stop speaking Rohingya, and then just encouraging him that it's fine, just kind of focus on English? Where is that coming from, and why?
Maybe because if he like one day was to go to school, so he wouldn't get like made fun of.
Okay, so he wouldn't kind of be treated in a different way, basically, and kind of get bullied potentially. Amelia, what about you? What do you think?
I think that Subi's mum said stopped speaking Rohingya to him is because it might be because she wants him to like achieve things in life, and because in Australia, obviously the main language is English, so they will have, if they like ever get out of the detention center, which they probably won't, it's good to have like learn English so they can so he can go to school, he can get an education, he could do work and earn for himself. And it's like basically Subi's mum wants a better future for Subi than she had.
No, absolutely. And Arush, but do you think that it's... So is it okay to create an environment where people feel that they need to assimilate, that in order for me to be successful, I have to speak the I mean, of course, to some extent you have to be able to speak the language of the country that you're in, but should it be to the extent that you let go of what your other kind of culture or language is?
Not really, because when you know the language, if Subi knows the language his mother speaks, it builds a connection between him and his homeland. So
Yeah.
if he doesn't know it, he's not sure where he belongs. And it's understandable that his mum wants him to have a good future, because even here, you have to know English to get a job and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, what you're saying about connection and that sense of belonging is obviously really important. Hannah, what do you think? Like, I guess maybe from a perspective, like we're, for example, all sitting here, we're being born in this country, like in the UK, but obviously our families come from different countries. How does that play out for us or for young people your age? How do you think this idea of knowing your mother tongue, or how important is it? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's important because first of all, if you've never been there, you'll never know anything about it. So at least one thing you can take from there is the language. That's not so hard to learn, like from your parents or something. So he should, I think, know his mother tongue so that he won't forget, as they said, where he comes from. And even though he does need to adapt to his surroundings and learn English, he shouldn't have to forget to learn Rohingyan just to find his way of life.
Yeah, no, that's really, I guess, an important kind of way of looking at it. Anissa, what do you think then? Because I know, for example, when it comes to my children or parents my age who are trying their best to get their children to kind of learn their mother tongue, whatever that might be, why do you think it's difficult? Like I'm saying, maybe from my own perspective, like it is a bit difficult, and I think sometimes younger children do find it a little bit difficult. Can you give any insight to why that might be? Or
I think it might be difficult for, let's say, kids like us to learn our mother tongue because we're so used to let's just say from where we are, the Western culture, because we've been born here, we've adapted to it. For Sub here, because he's basically adapted to the Australian culture, but he wants to feel connected to the people of, he's from Rohingya, right? So he wants to feel the connection, so he wants to try and learn his language.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what is always interesting, because there's obviously the term assimilation that gets bandied about a lot, especially politically and in the news as well. The idea, for example, the government expecting, let's say, the Muslim community, they need to assimilate more. They need to be, well, actually, it's not even the word assimilate. They're kind of using the word integration. They need to integrate more. But actually, I think to some extent the hope is, and I think maybe that's what Zana Fraillon is showing in her book, The Bone Sparrow, the fact that there's a need in order for you to succeed, especially if you're a minoritized community or, for example, a refugee, that there is a pressure that in order to be successful and to do really well, you need to somehow compromise on your own culture and heritage and values and language and all these things. But actually that's, ultimately it is creating a disconnect. And then, coming back to what Arush was saying about your sense of belonging, I think it can create a little bit of how to say, disharmony, within your own self. So yeah, I think, I can see the intention and the importance to Subi that he really wants to hang on to his language. Okay, so there's the book, The Bone Sparrow, obviously deals with lots of different themes. So we've got, for example, storytelling. We've got the, theme of identity. There's also looking at friendship when we mentioned the relationship between Subi and Jimmy, who are kind of the same age and they meet and the different experiences that they have. Imagination is also a really big theme. And it's related to the main protagonist, which is Subi, because he hasn't gone beyond the detention centre. He relies a lot on his imagination to come up with his own stories, and it's a way of survival, I think, for him. Now there's a really interesting part of the book which involves the Shakespeare duck. So he comes across something which is basically a rubber duck. It is meant to look like Shakespeare, and it becomes like a prop in the book that gives us an insight into different part, I guess, of Subi's personality. So what is it, do you think, that, is there anything in particular that anyone wants to share? Why do you think the author introduced the Shakespeare duck? Like, how does it help you understand any of the story? Does anyone want to explain that bit of the story?
It's a way for the author to show Subi's inside thoughts, because what he's thinking on the outside, he says it, but like how he's actually feeling inside, sometimes the author uses the Shakespeare duck to tell how he's feeling inside.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And is anybody here enjoy the Shakespeare duck aspects of the book, or what do you enjoy or not enjoy about them?
Yeah, I like the Shakespeare duck because it shows that Subi had like a sarcastic side of him, because the Shakespeare duck was quite sarcastic at times, and it showed that Subi wasn't just just saying innocent stuff. He was also like,
yeah, so because the Shakespeare does question some of the things when Subi's thinking or trying to make decisions, and you're right, he does it in quite a humorous and kind of sarcastic way, which gives you insight into maybe Subi himself. Amelia, do you have any thoughts about Shakespeare duck, or did you enjoy those bits of the book?
I did enjoy Shakespeare duck. I feel like it shows the reality side of Subi's thoughts, because like generally children who are in those situations like tend to grow up faster, so that might be like the side of him that's thinking like the worst of things, because as we know, Subi's like quite young. I'm guessing about 9-10 years old, I'm not really sure, but it's like Subi is like the curious. He likes to imagine things, and he's like very creative in his mind. But I feel like the Shakespeare duck is like his thoughts, but the sarcastic, funny, but reality side of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it brings a bit of humour to the book, because as I know Nisa said earlier on, you kind of get that sense it's going to be quite a sad book, but I think the author, she does well through the Shakespeare duck to bring a bit of humour and wit into the story, which I think is really helpful. So I think, in terms of The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon, obviously, like I said, that, she covers a lot of themes in the book itself. And I also mentioned at the start of the show, it would be quite helpful for people to have a bit more context around what, detention centres are like. And for example, just to give you a little bit of information, that in the UK, the Home Office determines obviously whether or not they're going to accept or refuse asylum applications. So if an application is upheld, then the person obviously has permission to live in with obviously the rest of the community. If it's denied, however, they can be subject to kind of immigration control. And you have different detention centres even within the UK. One of quite well-known ones that people may have heard of is Yarlswood, which is located in Bedfordshire, which is basically houses women and family groups that are awaiting immigration clearance. Now, it's been around for a while, like since 2001, but actually it's subject to heavy criticism. And actually, it's involved some of the people there, going on hunger strikes and kind of protesting because they feel that they're being treated inadequately. Now, in the book itself, The Bone Sparrow, there is a moment where some of the refugees, they go on a hunger strike. So that is one of the more kind of maybe harder themes that the book tackles. Was there anything that when you read that, how did that kind of make you feel about the people having to do that and trying to having to try to kind of do a protest in that way. Hannah, do you have any thoughts on that part of the book?
That they were very committed to try to show the world that they were just very committed to just showing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, because they just really want to get the word out, especially in the context of the book, to media and stuff. Arush, what about you? How did you feel reading that kind of part of the story?
Well, I felt kind of bad that they had to sew their lips together just to show people that they're hungry.
Yeah.
And to make people see them, they had to do that much.
Yeah. And again, that's exactly it. There's such a visceral way, I think, that the author kind of shows it. And obviously the idea is that they want to then have like pictures which hopefully will end up in the media, and then people are able to learn about how they're being treated, and and I guess like Hannah said, to do it in a way which to some extent it's even more than commitment. It's almost like there's a sense of desperation that we need to do something really, really important, so we can really show how bad how badly we're being treated. And again, it's the fact that this is obviously a story of one detention centre, which has, in relation to kind of Australia. But the UN estimate says like 26 million refugees around the world. And the UK has resettled around 26,000. And I always find these stats really, really interesting, because if you were to listen to the UK government, you would really honestly think that there's some kind of uncontrollable amount of refugees and asylum seekers that are seeking safety, which they have every right to do. But the fact that out of 26 million, that the UK has only resettled 26,000 in the past 5 years really just show actually how much more the UK could be doing, and they're choosing not to, unfortunately. Because in terms of percentages, the World Bank puts the total number of refugees in the UK at 2018 at 127,000, or 0.5% of the world's refugees. So that's a really, really kind of, I guess, damning statistic I think just keep in mind. So we are approaching the end of the show. So we were talking today to Iman, Amelia, Arush, Hannah and Anissa about The Bone Sparrow by Zana Fraillon. And we hope that might be a book that you might choose to read yourself. I mean, I read this and really, really enjoyed it. You can get a play text of the book, because it was made into a theatre production, which gives you a little bit more insight. There's some workshop activities and some questions that you can get at the back of that particular book, but that's been adapted for stage, and it was through the Pilot Theatre Company, so you can find that more information online. But in the meantime, that I will be back, inshallah, with a new book and some new guests. But what I really, really hope is to have these ladies back on a future show. So I'm sure, inshallah, we'll hear a lot from them. I am actually going to put them on the spot and ask all of them, would you do another show? Would you be back on the Book Club Show? Oh my God, that was such a long pause. I'm waiting for all of you to go, yeah, of course we will.
Yes.
Oh,
definitely.
thank you. Okay, I will pay you later. Don't tell anybody. All right. Okay, so that was the Book Club Show. Please do keep us all in your du'as. And you will hear from me, inshallah, very, very soon. Assalamu alaikum.
The battle and cross the line.
mind. I'm about to make another mistake, and even though I try to stay away, everything around me keeps dragging me in. I can't help thinking to myself, what if my time would end today, today, today? Can I guarantee that I will get another chance before it's too late, too late, too late? Forgive me. My heart is so full of regret. Forgive me. Now is the right time for me to repent, repent, repent. Am I out of my mind? What did I do? Oh, I feel so bad. And every time I try to start all over again, my shame comes back to haunt me. I'm trying hard to walk away, but temptation is surrounding me, surrounding me. I wish that I could find the strength to change my life before it's too late, too late, too late. Forgive me. My heart is so full of regret. Forgive me. Now is the right time for me to repent, repent, repent. I know, Allah, you're the most forgiving, and that you've promised to always be there when I call upon you. So now I'm standing here, ashamed of all the mistakes I've committed. Please don't turn me away, and hear my prayer when I ask you to forgive me. My heart is so full of regret. Forgive me. Now is the right time for me to repent, repent. Forgive me. My heart is so full of regret. Forgive me. Now is the right time for me to repent, repent. Forgive me. My heart is so full of regret. Forgive me. Now is the right time for me to repent, repent, repent.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.